A warm welcome to our parents, friends, and especially to our grandparents who are joining us today for Class 4's presentation of the Revolutionary Voices. At the core of the Marymount mission is our commitment to empower each girl to find her own voice so she can challenge, shape, and change the world. Our speech and drama program is showcased in our annual cross-curricular presentations. And yes, even in this unique year, our Class 4 girls have been able to explore revolutionary voices during their history, language arts, music, visual arts, and drama classes. Each student researched her own character, learning about important men and women who were heroes of the Revolutionary era and made great contributions to the American history. Students wrote their own unique monologues from the character's perspective based on historical fact and enhanced by dramatic presentation. You will get a chance to see the visual and performing arts program in action through their beautiful character self-portraits, song, dance, and strong public speaking skills. Revolutionary Voices is the second of 6 interdisciplinary units during their years in the lower middle and the upper middle school. It is designed to keep our students' voices strong so they can communicate effectively with confidence and joy. I am so proud of each and every one of our girls and their excellent work. So sit back and relax. Let the show begin.
Hello, my American friends. Today I'll be telling you my side of the Battle of Yorktown. And don't worry, it ends well. Oh, how rude of me. I haven't introduced myself. My name is George Washington. You might recognize my name from somewhere. That's because I was the leader of the Continental Army and America's first president. I first have to tell you how I ended up becoming a leader. It all started when I was asked to lead the Continental Army. I was afraid I was a little too old to lead a whole army, but the future of America depended on me. So I said, of course. I wanted to help win the war and free America from British rule. At the beginning of the war, my troops seemed no match for the British. I had to jump into action, so I turned to France and asked for help. I asked them to send clothes, food, and blankets. Little did I know just how much they would help me. Let me set the scene for the Battle of Yorktown. It's September 28, 1781, many months after the war began. I had just learned that British General Cornwallis and many tired soldiers were headed to Yorktown, Virginia. I finally had a chance to attack the British. I was excited and I was ready to fight them, but if I wanted my battle plan to work, I would need more soldiers. Then wonderful news came. The French sent 28 ships full of thousands of men and their navy to help us. The timing was absolutely perfect. First, my men joined the French army in New York. Then I carefully sneaked past the redcoats and raced night and day for 500 miles all the way south to Yorktown, leading over 17,000 troops. When we arrived, we started fighting. It was a brutal battle. We fought the British for almost 3 weeks. My troops and I were all tired, but I knew we couldn't give up now. We were too close to winning independence for Americans. By early October, Cornwallis was outnumbered 2-1, but he still had hope. He sent letters pleading for help to British generals in New York, but they never came. General Henry Clinton kept making excuses for not fighting us. That, and he was too busy meeting up with a special visitor, King George's son. Back on the battlefield, soldiers lay everywhere. Suddenly, a British officer appeared through the smoke, waving a big white flag in the air. This meant victory. General Cornwallis surrendered on October 19, 1781. Finally leaving the USA an independent country. Because of me, America is the wonderful country it is today. If it wasn't for me, you'd still be living under British rule. Looking back to when I was a child, I would have never thought that I would accomplish the many great things like leading my country to freedom. Thank you for listening to my story. I feel so blessed that I got to be the leader of the Continental Army and the first president of the United States of America. Good day, everyone, and God bless America.
Boo. Oh, I guess that only looks on my brother. Well, I'm Sybil Luddington. I shared this crazy adventure with my siblings, which I have a lot of, so I will share my adventure with you. Just so you know, it is a long story, so sit back and relax. No, I mean it. You do not want to have back issues like my mother. I was born April 5th, 1716, and I'm the oldest of 12 siblings. Yes, there's 11 other children than me. I was born in Frankstonburg, New York, but you might know it as Ludingtonsville. And those are just 3 facts about me. Here's the rest of my story. I was 16 inside my mom's little cottage on a dark, stormy night. It was cold and I was tired. My dad, Colonel Henry Luddington, was reading a story to me and my siblings. All of a sudden, a messenger knocked on our door and came inside of our house. He said 2,000 British soldiers had attacked Danbury, Connecticut, and that the British were burning warehouses with weapons and clothes. He said there were no American soldiers to protect the town of Danbury. By the looks of the messenger, he was cold, wet, and needed rest. So we wanted the messenger to stay with us at our home. My dad couldn't go help the Patriots in Danbury because he had to protect our town. And my mom couldn't go because she had to protect the children. There was only one person who could do it. Me. You guessed it. My mom was like, oh no, she's 16. She can't go. I said, "It's okay, Mother, I'll go. It can't be that dangerous," sounding a lot braver than I actually was. I got Star all dressed up and put her favorite saddle on. If you don't know who Star is, she is my pet horse, and she is so talented. That same night, I got bundled up in my coat and said goodbye to my mom and dad. I headed out into the dark, cold, and wet, stormy night. A mile from my home, I knew there was no going back. Star knew what we had to do. She started running and running and running. I had to stop at each house to tell them to evacuate their home because the British had arrived and were burning down houses in the area, and also to come meet at the Ludington house to prepare for the battle. Sooner than I knew it, I had been to all the houses in the area. I climbed a tree, breathed in some fresh air, and rested my head on a branch. Then I heard something. Was it intruders, the British, or outlaws? I tried to be as quiet as I could. When I tried to see who or what it was, they were outlaws. Obviously, I had to get on my horse and ride away before they could catch me. I was so glad that I was home. I ran into my mom's arms, and I never wanted to let go of her. I was so proud of myself. Because of me and all the other warriors in the Revolutionary War, America was safe again. Without me, many families in Danbury could have been killed by the British Army. My warning helped the patriot troops prepare for the battle and defend our freedom and our country. I hope you enjoyed my story. Have a good day, and long live American independence.
Give me liberty or give me death. Oh, sorry. I thought you were the House of Burgesses. My name is Patrick Henry, and here's a little bit more about me. I was born on May 29, 1736, in Virginia. I love to cause chaos. I stopped attending school when I was 10, and I was taught by my father. Spending time at court inspired me to go to Williamsburg to become a lawyer. Today I'm going to tell you about how I helped motivate the colonists to fight against the British. In 1765, I was elected to the House of Burgesses. The House of Burgesses was a group of people selected to help make decisions about Virginia's government. After the Stamp Act was unfairly made by a law by King George III, some Virginia leaders and I met in March 1775 in St. John's Church in Richmond. I gave a speech about taxes. I stated that the British must stop their unjust rule. I was glowing with faith because I believed that I could stop taxation without representation. In my passionate speech, I said the following: "Is life so dear, or peace so sweet? Give me liberty or give me death." I was amazed. I really pulled it off. I ended my speech with plunging an imaginary dagger into my heart. The audience did not applaud because I deeply struck their minds and hearts. When the Stamp Act was repealed, I was as happy as a girl with a puppy because I felt that I had inspired people to fight for liberty. In the end, I helped to give America freedom. I showed that I would do anything to make America the place we want it to be. Without me, many people might not have been inspired to fight for freedom in the war. I was the person that really made people see why taxation was not fair without representation. Farewell, I'm off to the House of Burgesses. Don't forget that words can change the world.
Hello, my name is Phil Sweetley. You probably know who I am, so there's no reason to go over my story again. Bye! Oh, what's that you say? You've never heard of me? Well, in that case, let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born in the Gambia on the west coast of Africa. At 7 or 8 years old, I was kidnapped. Within 10 weeks, I arrived in Boston Harbor as an enslaved person. I was sold to the Wheatleys. I'm sure you're wondering if that's where I got my last name from. Yes, you're right. That is where I got my last name from. As a matter of fact, it is also where I got my first name from. The boat I was traveling on was called the Phils. I don't know my original African name, though. If you find that interesting, I know you'll love hearing more about my life. As I got older, Mrs. Wheatley taught me English, Greek, Latin, geography, math, and to read and write. Soon after, I became interested in writing poetry. My first poem was published when I was just 13 years old. I became the first African American, first U.S. enslaved person, first Black woman to publish a book of poems. One of the reasons being an enslaved poet was hard for me was because people didn't think enslaved people could write anything. Enslaved people were not allowed to read or write, and because of that, many people questioned if I was the author of my poems. If I had been someone else, maybe all of you would have heard of me. Although if I wasn't me, I might not have been able to meet and been addressed by General Washington in such a kind and respectful manner. General Washington requested to meet me because I am such an important figure and he had read my poems and really liked them. This was the very first time an enslaved person was addressed as Miss. King George even wanted to meet me. I bet you didn't think it could have impacted the Revolutionary War. Most people say, how could you impact the Revolutionary War? After all, you're just a poet. I impacted the war by writing poems about freedom and significant people, such as General Washington. I also wrote these poems about religion, my African heritage, and slavery. I wrote these poems so that the people of this generation, and all future generations, would see that African Americans were capable and intelligent human beings that deserved freedom. My work is known to help impact the abolitionist movement. As an enslaved Black woman, I wanted freedom for myself and other enslaved people, just as the colonists wanted freedom from British rule. I'm an inspiration today for people of color and people fighting for their rights. I would like to close with a few lines from one of my poems, to the Right Honorable William, Earl of Dartmouth, that expresses these desires for freedom. Should you, my lord, while you peruse my song, wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung, whence flow these wishes for the common good, by feeling hearts alone best understood. I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Afric's fancied happy seat. What pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was at the soul, and by no misery moved, that from a father sees his babe beloved. Such my case, and can I then but pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway. Farewell, I am off to brainstorm my next fantastic poem.
Hello, my fellow Americans. I am Thomas Jefferson. I was born on April 13, 1743 in Virginia. You might know me as the third President of the United States, the smartest one, in fact. You may also know me as the author of the Declaration of Independence, but I didn't just do that. So let me start by telling you a little bit more about myself, and then I will explain why the Declaration of Independence is so important for our nation. Now, let me start with my childhood. As a kid, I loved to study. My dad always wanted me to be one step ahead of my class, so he put me in an English school at the age of 5. Yes, I know, it was an early age to focus on studying, but at least that made me smarter. At the age of 16, I went to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. There I studied mathematics, natural philosophy, and political philosophy. After enjoying my 2 years of college, I finally graduated in 1764. 4 years later, at the age of 25, I built a house of my own, which I named Monticello. Monticello means little mountain in Italian. On March 22, 1790, General Washington assigned me to be a Secretary of State. I was very effective in that position, and I felt very happy with myself for getting this far. I brought remarkable talents to a long career guiding the U.S. foreign affairs. As I said in the beginning, you may also know me as the third President of the United States. In the elections of 1801, I competed against John Adams to become the third president. I was lucky to win, and I felt very proud of myself for that. Lastly, I am also remembered by writing the Declaration of Independence, so let me tell you about it. I love explaining this because it was one of my most important creations. Let me start by saying that I started writing my first draft of the Declaration in June 1776. While I was writing, I was under a lot of pressure, but I knew the nation was depending on me, so I had to keep going. I finally finished writing it on August 2nd, 1776. 3 months of hard work really paid off. Now, enough story time. Let me explain to you why the Declaration of Independence is so important. It is a very key part of the American democracy as it contains the ideas and goals of our nation. Some of those ideas and goals were to serve the troops, win foreign jollies, and to announce the creation of a new country. The introductory sentence clearly states the Declaration's main purpose, which is to explain the colonists' rights to revolution. Second, it contains the complaints of the colonists against the British king. Boo King George! Lastly, it contains the arguments the colonists used why they wanted to be free from British rule. We want a president, not a king. The Declaration of Independence also states that the authority to government belongs to the people rather than to King George, that all people are created equal and have the rights to live, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The American colonies had been at war with Great Britain for over a year. But when the document was signed on August 2nd, 1776, everyone finally made peace with each other. So now I hope you actually understand why this document is so important and it's not just a piece of paper as you may have thought. Before I finish, my fellow Americans, I will share an important message that I learned throughout my career. Nothing can stop the man or woman with the right mental attitude from achieving their goal, and nothing on earth can help the man or woman with the wrong mental attitude. Now it's time for me to go, so farewell, my colonists. God bless America, and God bless you. Hi, folks. My name's Molly Pitcher. Well, that's what people call me. My real name is Mary Hayes. Now you may be wondering, why do people call you Molly Pitcher when your name is Mary? Well, I'll tell you all why. It all started when my husband, John, proposed. I was so excited. We got married a few months after, and John wanted to join the army. It was hard to imagine. Do I really want him risking his own life? After I realized it was the right choice, I let him go and went with him. When we first arrived at camp, it was hard. But then I found how to make myself useful by cooking, helping injured soldiers, and washing clothes for them. Then, a few weeks later, a Patriot soldier came and said we had to move camp to Philadelphia. It was stressful. Everyone was a little bit happy we were going because it was going to be warm and we could relax a little. Well, that wasn't the case. When we arrived, it was freezing. There was snow everywhere. Now, most of you may think, what's wrong with snow? It's just like a snow day all month. Well, not for us. Half of the troop quit. It got so cold at one point, even John wanted to quit. I told him not to, and thankfully he listened. General Washington knew he had to do something, so everyone who stayed until spring was given an extra month's pay. Yay! Everyone was so happy. For the first couple of weeks of spring, it was peaceful and relaxing. Well, not for long. A few weeks later, another Patriot soldier came and said, "The British are retreating. Pack up your gear and bury your garbage." This put everyone in shock. We had to move fast and make it look like no one was here. We left and went to Monmouth, New Jersey. No one knew that this was going to be one of the longest and hardest battles of the Revolution. The battle started off okay. No soldiers fell or got seriously hurt. Then after a few minutes, we realized it was getting out of control. The battlefield got so hot. It was higher than 96 degrees. Men were passing out in front of our eyes. Someone needed to do something, but we didn't know what to do. Women weren't allowed on the battlefield. I knew I had to do something, so I did. I grabbed a pitcher and went to the spring nearby and filled it up. Then I ran on the battlefield and gave the men water from my pitcher. Soldiers were saying, "Molly, pitcher." They said Molly because back then, men would call women Molly if they didn't know their name. You may be wondering, why did they call me pitcher? Well, this was their way of saying, "Molly, give me the pitcher." Everyone thought the drama was over, but it wasn't. While I helped a soldier, all of the Minutemen passed out. John passed out due to the heat. I had to help him fast. I ran as quickly as I could and gave him water and made sure he was comfortable. He told me be careful no matter what. Once I made sure he was okay, I went to the cannon and started to fire. Everyone kept on saying she should stop. Women aren't allowed to fire a cannon. Or her husband will be proud, but she won't last. I didn't listen to any of them. I kept on firing, and at the end of the day, the British retreated. If it wasn't for me, the British would have won the Battle of Monmouth. All the soldiers I saved would have died, and that would have affected the troop by making it smaller and weaker. Because I decided to marry John and help these soldiers, I saved many lives. Farewell, I'm off to another battle. Wait, where did my picture go?
Hello, I'm Deborah Sampson. I was born in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I fought in the Revolution War. And yes, I was that girl in the army that dressed up as a boy. I was in Philadelphia on an important mission, and General Patterson eventually honored me. Soon you'll find out how my secret was discovered. On May 20th, 1782, I joined the Continental Army, even though girls were not allowed. I wanted to help our country and prove that girls can do anything. I joined the army with the name Robert Sherlift. I dressed up as a boy. I pressed a deep voice, and yes, I also cut my hair like a boy. For my first test as a soldier, I had to make a long march to West Point, New York. I had to march with 50 men, and it took almost 2 weeks. Every day, I felt more and more tired. As I was fighting for my countries, the Tories came running on their horses. If you don't know who the Tories are, they're our enemies. All of a sudden, I felt a burning pain in my leg. When I looked down and I saw that the loyalist had shot me in my leg, it hurt so badly. My friend wanted to take me to the hospital to see if I was okay. I said, "Don't take me," because I was worried he might discover my secret. But he took me anyway. I went to the hospital and I saw Dr. Binney. He said he would take out the bullet, but I was worried he might discover my secret. So I went into another room. I wanted to pull out the bullet out myself so the doctor would not find out my secret. I was nervous it would not stop bleeding or something would go wrong. But I did it anyway. I took the bullet out myself. Even after my injury, I kept on fighting. General Patterson chose me to be his personal orderly. It was a high honor to serve him. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, Dr. Binney sent a note to General Patterson about me. In the letter, he told the general that I was a girl, so I had to confess. General Patterson could not believe it. Soon all my friends found out too. After fighting for a year and a half, I was discharged from the Army on October 25th, 1783. But it was worth it. I proved that girls can do anything they set their minds to. Now I am married and I have 3 children. Good day. God bless America.
Greetings, fellow patriots. I hope your day has been going well. I am James Lafayette, a former enslaved person and spy. Today, I will be telling you about how I worked as a double agent between the Loyalists, who wanted to stay with King George, and the Patriots, who wanted freedom. I myself am a patriot. I mean, what else would I be? After I finish the story, you will see why I was so important in the Patriots' effort. Now, let's get on with the story. Benedict Arnold, the person who began the war on the colonist side, didn't feel appreciated, so he secretly switched sides. Sounds like a traitor to me. Then I found out that enslaved people who fought in the war could be freed. I wanted freedom more than anything, so I decided to join the Patriots and start working as a spy. With orders from General Lafayette, I dressed in tatters and said that I was a runaway, and offered to guide the British soldiers along unfamiliar roads. Cornwallis, Arnold, and the British troops shared information and plans in front of me that I shouldn't have known. I told the information to General Lafayette. The British had gained so much trust in me that they told me to spy on the Americans for them. I said yes, and I purposely gave them misleading information about the colonists. The information I gave to General Lafayette allowed us to trap General Cornwallis at the Battle of Yorktown. The British were forced to surrender, and that was it. That meant that the Battle of Yorktown was the last battle of the Revolutionary War. We had won the war, but for me, after the war ended, the result was not what I expected. I didn't get recognized or freed immediately after the war.
Only enslaved people who fought as soldiers in the war got freed, not spies. It was so unfair because it wasn't until 3 years later that General Lafayette found out what I had done for the colonists. As soon as he heard about me, he freed me. In honor of him freeing me, I took the last name Lafayette. Undoubtedly, the war could have ended very differently if it wasn't for me. Without the information that I got from the British troops, we probably wouldn't have won the Battle of Yorktown or the war at all. Now that's my story. Pretty neat, right? Take that, Cornwallis and Arnold.
Hi, I'm Merciotis Warren. You probably don't know how I took part in the Revolutionary War, so listen up. I was born in West Barnable, Cape Cod, with my many siblings. My father believed that everyone should receive a good education, so I went to school with my brother Jemmy. We learned with the local schoolmaster. My favorite book was The History of the World. But when the revolution started, there was a lot to be afraid of with all those redcoats walking around. Now, going into my adult life. My parents always expected me to marry and take care of the house. But I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to go into political life like Jemmy and my father, who both became lawyers. In the end, I did get married to James Warren and had 5 sons. But that didn't put an end to my love of politics. I had a secret life too. I wrote poems and plays. But I'll get to that later. Anyway, I named my house 1 Liberty Square, and several men came to discuss the Loyalists and the Patriots. Most women would stay out of sight for this type of thing, but I didn't. I stayed, spoke my mind, and had a splendid time. In the meetings, we wouldn't only discuss Loyalists and Patriots. We were planning to form a Continental Congress. But after that, things started to get out of hand. Jemmy, my sweet brother Jemmy, he got savagely beaten by the enemy and was declared insane. I wanted revenge. To get revenge, during the Boston Massacre, my friends and I boycotted British taxed silk and cotton and used wool instead. Oh, and about my poems and plays. I wrote many plays, but even more poems. All of my plays starred patriots as heroes and loyalists as villains. Then I started writing in the Boston Gazette. One of my most known pieces in the Gazette was The Squabble of the Sea Nymphs. Out of fear, I wrote anonymously and didn't sign my name. Just look what happened to Jemmy. I didn't want that to happen to me. Also, people wouldn't respect a woman writer in my time. It's completely ridiculous, though. You know, I hear there's a school for girls, and they applaud the girls for writing stories. It's called Marymount. Finally, at the age of 77, I proudly signed my work. I don't think we would have won the Revolutionary War without me being able to help form the Continental Congress. Thank you, and God bless America.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to tell you all about my big choice and how I escaped the British prison ship. If you haven't yet heard of me, I'm James Forden. I live in Philadelphia and work as a sailmaker. My parents and I were born free, but my grandparents were enslaved. So anyway, one day on the British ship, Captain Baisley gave me a choice I'll never forget. Even though the choice was difficult, I will always be loyal to my country and all of my fellow patriots. It was a hard decision, but I still support my choice today. Let me tell you why. When I was 14, I boarded the Royal Louis to do my part for my country. My job on the ship was to bring gunpowder to the ship's cannons. I was so nervous. With one small slip, the powder could go kaboom. One day, the huge British ship, the Amphion, was chasing us. Later that day, the captain told everyone that we'd have to surrender and hopefully get traded back to America. I was really nervous. African American prisoners usually didn't get traded. Would I end up as a slave? On the British ship, I made a friend, Henry Baisley, the captain's son. We often played marbles, even though I was way better, and toured the ship together. One day, Captain Baisley gave me a choice. It was to either stay on the ship as a prisoner or to go to Britain with Henry, where I would live freely. Of course, that would be betraying the Patriots and taking the easy way out. So I said no, I will stay on the ship as a prisoner until I get freed. Soon the prisoners got moved to another British ship, the Jersey. 7 months later, I was finally freed. I was so happy, I almost hugged the British officer that freed me. Well, that's not true. I wanted to go home to my family, so I walked all the way from New York to Philadelphia. It took so long, and I was so tired and hungry. When I got there, I worked at my father's old sail-making shop and became one of the richest men in Philadelphia. Because of me and what I did for America, African Americans finally received recognition for the important role they played during the American Revolution. I was the first Black man to get honored for what I did to help win the war. I hope someday soon everyone of every background gets treated fairly like they deserve. Until then, good day, everyone. God bless America. Good afternoon. I am Chief Thananesia, a Mohawk leader. I am also known as Joseph Brant. Some people might tell you I'm a hero. Do you want to know why? I was named after my grandfather, and I grew up in Ohio country. When I was a child, my favorite activities were fishing, canoeing with my friends, and playing games. I studied to read and write in English, and studied the Bible in Moore's Charity School in 1761. I had military success by showing my leadership and courage to my nation. In July 1765, I married the love of my life, Margaret, and we moved to Kanahari, near Albany, New York. We had 2 children, one boy named Isaac and one girl named Christina. I can't wait to tell you about my contribution to the American Revolution. My first war was with Sir William Johnson. I was 13 years old, and the war was called the French and Indian War. The war lasted from 1754 to 1763. During this war, I was a smart and a fast learner, and was soon put in charge of my own military unit. I felt very proud. I also stopped the Red Jackets from convincing the Haudenosaunee Nation to make peace with the colonists. During this war, I sided with the British because I thought it would help me keep my land. After the war, I visited England and got a captain commission, and even became Johnson's secretary. Once the Revolutionary War started, I felt worried. Both colonists and the British came to me and asked the Haudenosaunee Nation to stay neutral in the war and not to pick a side. 4 of the 6 Haudenosaunee nations ended up joining with the British because we believed this would protect our land. Once my nation, the Mohawks, started fighting for the British, I led the raid of Cherry Valley and was a military commander. Even though I was successful, Britain wasn't winning the war. I wondered what would happen to our land. Overall, my nation and I helped the British on and off the battlefield. We lost the war, my people's homes, allies, and land. I felt devastated. It was like losing someone I loved. However, there was some good news. Even though the British lost the war, they still had some land in North America, in present-day Canada. Because we helped them during the war in 1783, Britain gifted my people more than 600,000 acres of land along the Grand River to live on. I hope all Native nations will get to keep their land in the future. Even though British lost the war, I am still known today as a great military captain, peacekeeper, and translator. Well, I'm off to protect my land from the Patriots.
Here I am. You're all such fools. I'm here because all you Americans think that I am a tyrant, unfit to be the ruler of free people. But I will show you and prove to you that you are wrong. My name is King George III. I know you might think I shouldn't give taxes, but I feel it is necessary because it pays for me to protect you. Okay, listen. This is how I see everything, so please don't judge me. Now, let's talk about some more taxes that you think are unnecessary and unfair. First, I made one tax called the Sugar Act in 1764. The Sugar Act made the colonists pay taxes to ship sugar and molasses. I see nothing wrong with this, but then those colonists started sneaking it around without paying. This made me mad. The war cost me so much money, and they had the nerve to smuggle the sugar. Next, in 1765, I got Parliament to approve the Stamp Act, which meant the colonists were taxed on official stamps and seals. Once again, the seals and stamps belonged to me, so why shouldn't the colonists pay extra for them? I was so broke after that war that I fought in their defense. After that, The Americans were angry about the tea tax, so a group of American rebels disguised as Mohawk natives boarded the Dartmouth ship in Boston Harbor and dumped the tea into the harbor. I couldn't believe they wasted all that perfectly delicious tea. What traitors! I was disgusted with them, and I gave them an even worse tax to punish them. What else was I supposed to do? They were getting out of control and thinking that they could have independence? That would be terrible for Britain, so I didn't have a choice. I need to show them that I was in control. When I started introducing taxes, the colonists started protesting, and they said, no taxation without representation. Were they crazy? I would never give them seats in Parliament. Why did they bother protesting when they knew I didn't care what they thought? Once the war started, I proposed a plan to harass the colonists by land and sea, and to keep the rebels harassed, anxious, and poor. America would have been better off with me as a ruler because I am a better leader than George Washington. Things get messy when there are too many people in charge. No colonists like me. They thought I was unfair, but I would argue that they were the bad people who couldn't follow my commands, even though they were very simple. As I said long ago, I will always keep up one tax to keep up the right to tax. So if I ever rule the colonies again, they better watch out. Farewell, I'm off to powder my gorgeous wig.